back from the break, and you're watching Smart Means Business. And of course, we do mean business here. That is why we also give you information and remind you that you can invest in the government bonds by using the Zabu platform. Zabu is a platform by Otex East Africa, and it's giving you a more better option for you to invest quickly in government bonds with just a minimum of 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Zabu is definitely there for you. Use 15,000 Ugandan shillings with the markets opening up at 8:15 a.m. They do close at 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. That is the same time when you can quickly invest in these government bonds and see yourself grow bigger today by investing in government bonds. Zabu, my money, my future. Otex East Africa, do something new. You should note as well that these markets don't open on public holidays as well as the weekends. Now let's head to sports business. And in sports, Juventus, which is a 36-time winners of the Serie A, have dropped down to 9th place after being docked 15 points following a probing to the club's past transfer dealings. And the touring club now sits 27 points adrift of the leaders Napoli, who have 50 points in the Italian Serie A. They had been in third place, 10 points off the top spot before the penalty was applied on them last week on Friday. Now, we're looking at why were Juventus docked off these points. Now, the Italian Federation announced on Friday evening that Juventus had been deducted 15 points for financial irregularity and false accounting, which was in relation to historical transfer dealings, as well as the exchange of this is like the exchange of players between clubs, amongst clubs across the European continent. The club stands accused of pumping up its balance sheet by deliberately inflating player valuations during transfers in order to boost capital gains. Now, balancing the books has taken on greater importance in recent years following the introduction of financial fair play regulations by UEFA, that is the European football's governing body. And according to the Federation of Italian according to the Federation, the Italian Football Federation rather, the prosecutor Giuseppe Cin had requested a 9-point penalty be applied. The Federation is due to publish the reason for its ruling within the next 10 days and why Juventus was apparently chopped off 15 points. So the question is, what other penalties imposed if you look at this? As well as the points deduction, the Italian Football Federation handed out bans to 11 former and current Juventus executives, as well as preventing them from holding office in Italian football. So, of course, this is the longest single ban, totaling up to 30 months, was imposed on former Juventus sporting director and current Tottenham managing director Fabio Paratici, who will not be engaging in any football activity now in Italy. Now, former President Andrea Agnelli was handed a 24-month suspension, while Vice President Pavel Nedved received an 8-month ban. Both were former members of the club's board of directors, which resigned in Mans in November in response to the probing to the club's bookkeeping. So, following more on that same situation, Juventus have strongly denied the wrongdoing of this one, and the club has announced it will launch an appeal against the Italian Football Federation ruling once the reasons for the decision have been published. And also, if you look at the fact that there is an issue to the Sport Guarantee Board of the Italian Committee, which is Italy's highest sporting court at the end of the day. And most probably, this particular ruling has left Juventus in shambles, as most of the players are likely to leave the Italian club because it may be difficult for it to hit European football with this kind of form it is. It has just picked up, and now they've apparently chopped off 15 points off it for the financial fair play rules and regarding the probe into its recent transfer markets and signings recently. And lastly, from sports business, now we head to England, where the table leaders Arsenal have completed the signing of the Polish centre-back from Spezia, Jakub Kifor. Now, when you look at this particular one, the Polish striker was signed in a deal worth £20 million as the gaffer, Mikel Arteta, continues to bolster his squad. The 22-year-old has signed a 4.5-year deal with the option of a further year. Kivell is the Ghana's second signing this January after a £27 million signing of Leandro Trossard from Brighton and Hove Albion. So the 22-year-old who signs on a 4.5-year deal with the option of a further year at the Emirates Stadium becomes the Premier League leader's second signing, and he will be donning the number 15 jersey. So when you look at this particular, on completing his move to the North London side, Jakub Kivell did reveal that when he saw his name on an Arsenal shirt for the first time, he just laughed because he was happy to see his name on the shirt of such a huge club. And for him, it's an incredible moment and the pinnacle to play for such a big club. And he has always dreamt of playing in the Premier League, according to what he did reveal. So Kivell has been capped 9 times for Poland and started all 4 of their games at the World Cup, which was staged in Qatar. Arsenal were looking for a left-sided central defender, with Kivell expected to provide competition for Gabriel Magalhaes. So when you look at some of the key highlights of Kivell in the World Cup, he did have some good statistics in there, especially when it comes to Spezia, where he was playing in the Italian Serie A. And well, that is it for sports business this morning. And now, with 21 minutes to the top of the hour, we're joined by the region manager to give us the latest from the world of entertainment business. And what does he have for us this morning? Region, good morning once again.
Very good morning, Jerome. How was your morning right there?
Well, the morning was okay. What should the viewers expect? What do you have for them this morning?
Actually, before we get into that, you talked about the recent player that Arsenal just signed. I know you're very passionate about Arsenal. How significant is he? What is he going to add on the club, according to you?
Well, I think for starters, they are looking for a club depth. For Arsenal, they are looking for a club depth whereby you have player depth rather.
Okay.
In that in case you have an injury and in the later stage of the season, when you definitely want to compete for the league,
Okay.
you need to have quite a number of players who are going to come in even after the others are tired, because there's a time when most of them will get worn out and you need fresh energy coming in. So it is actually to expand the squad and compete favorably for the league.
Wow. Well, very, very interesting. Maybe, of course, in the entertainment, what we should expect, of course, Spotify laying off 6% of the labor force. And then away from that, you see M3 Gun, of course, being noted as the very scary good movie of the year, a movie released by Universal Pictures, and it's estimated to gross more than $100 million. More than that. Well, now getting straight into the business and entertainment this morning. And of course, just a brief highlight once again: Spotify laying off 6% of the employees, then coming down to M3 Gun. That's box office success sets a stage for a scary, good year in horror. That is something very, very remarkable. Remember, of course, still saying that it's just a movie that was released just a few weeks back, that it's estimated that it's going to gross more than $100 million. Now, of course, we shall kick off with Spotify laying off 6% of its employees. Well, I will say that there is quite a wave of layoffs when it comes to the entertainment world. And also recently, 13 hours back, actually, Warner Brothers Pictures also announced its layoffs. So it's not a surprise to see that Spotify is really doing this. Remember, majority of the artists say it's one of the most exploitative platform, which doesn't really pay quite a favorable fee when it comes to them being paid back from their plays. Now, the tech sector is facing a demand downturn after 2 years of pandemic-powered growth when it had hired aggressively. Spotify Technology said on Monday that it plans to cut 6% of its workforce, and it will take a related charge of up to nearly $50 million, adding to the massive layoffs in the technology sector in preparation for a possible recession. When you hear what we call when we hear recession, that is something which probably doesn't really sound very good news in that aspect, because we know what it really means for a recession in that regard, and this is spreading so really quite heavy. Now, The tech industry is facing a demand downturn for 2 years of the pandemic-powered growth, during which it had hired aggressively. That has laid firms from Meta platforms, that's in corporation, to Microsoft Corporation, to shed thousands of jobs. Now, remember, why Spotify hired aggressively during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a time when the digital age of music really dominated for the 2 years, and you realize that majority of these companies needed quite more labor to ensure that they can execute their services efficiently, simply because there was quite lots of subscriptions coming in day by day, because the only way you could sell out as somebody that is a content creator was when you had a digital platform where you distribute your content right there. So Spotify really made quite, it was very popular at that time. A majority subscriptions were increasing because artists got to realize that they actually need their music on the digital platform if they are to really make money. Now, this is a statement from one of the chief executive, that the CEO, that is Daniel Iki. Here in the statement, he said that over the last few months, we've made a considerable effort to rein in costs, but it simply hasn't been enough. So the CEO, that's Daniel Ek, said on a blog post, of course, announcing the roughly 600 job cuts. So now the 6% comes back to about 600 jobs. So that means Spotify employs about 1,000 workers, or 1,000 and above. So do you realize how really this is a very, very big and very impacting to the entertainment? Well, so the Stockholm-based Spotify had benefited from the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns because more people had sought out entertainment when they were stuck at home. It indicated that the company's business model, which had long focused on growth, had to evolve. So you see, the COVID-19 pandemic was a little bit of a rising. It led to quite certain platforms to rise on a very high rate in terms of subscriptions. We never had a time where the subscriptions increased just like for streaming platforms. People could actually really pay, could really subscribe, millions of subscribers. The likes of Netflix were one of the people that really benefited from this wave. Then there was also Amazon. Yes, during that time of the pandemic, Amazon hired quite lots of people. But still, surprisingly, when you look through these platforms after the lockdown, and now we are back to the traditional way of finding out things. People are now listening to the music, probably on TV and radios. So you realize that business is really declining in that perspective. So what does that mean? So that means that revenues reduce, like the revenues coming in through these particular platforms. Subscribers reduce because now they can go watch concerts, watch the artists, they buy tickets, they can go to the stores and buy these albums, physical copies. So what does that mean for the platform? That means they are reducing the rate at which they subscribe to these platforms. And once these revenues decline, definitely there is going to be a reduction in profitability. Yet the cost of production is always rising on a daily basis. There is always need to be the maintenance of the cost. So when the CEOs look through this and they realize that this is quite unrealistic, what happens next? They're going to lay off the workers. And that is what is happening at Spotify, just right there. Okay, it's not only Spotify. So many companies, Warner Brothers. There was also this company, this movie. It's called AMC Pictures. Sorry, yes, I remembered AMC Entertainment. Laid off workers, and it's been really very, very horrible. Companies under the Warner Brothers, CNN inclusive, there was quite massive layoffs of the workers. So it's known something which is that makes quite lots of news as such, that layoffs have happened. It's always anticipated, and more layoffs are likely to really take place because now we see there is automation of the way things are done. There is incorporation of artificial intelligence. So it's going to make quite work much more easy, and most of the CEOs actually are looking forward to how they can really cut the costs, and that is to do with that's the CEOs into the entertainment sector. Okay, now away from Spotify, we go to review this movie called M3 Gun. As we see, M3 Gun's box office success sets the stage for a scary good year in horror. Wow. And like I told you, anticipations that the movie will gross about more than 100 million. That is US dollars. Now, a fashion-forward Madura Stoll is bringing up big bucks at the box office. So we see that M3 Gun, the newest release from the Universal Studios and the Blumhouse collaboration, will end up more than 100 will end up with more than 100 million US dollars globally. It's the latest success. It's the latest success in the string of lucrative theatrical runs for horror genre. So what does this mean? A majority of the people are going to the box office. So it's really registering a tremendous year when it comes to box office ticket sales. And when I see such movies being cited out, and Universal Pictures, anyway, it's not by it's not, I'm not surprised. Universal Pictures is one of the entertainment companies that are largely known to be attracted to the traditional theatrical window, the 90-day window, when a movie, before it's distributed to a Blu-ray disc, it first of course, it's viewed into the theaters for 90 days. They are really good at promoting that. No wonder they are not so much into the streaming game like that way. So that really explains how they are really doing whatever they are best to push this product called M3 Gun, and that's why we anticipate it to gross more than 100 million US dollars. Now, while Hollywood's big budget blockbusters typically get the most attention, the consistently strong performance of scary movies at movie theaters is good news for the cinema industry. Now we are looking at success of what we call horror movies. And I don't know whether you like horror movies. Personally, I really have a test for them. And of course, a horror movie grossing 100 million US dollars, that makes it, you must be thinking, it must be a very, very interesting horror movie to watch. Not so many people really are much into them because of the differences. So horror movies actually don't really make money. They have not really been making a lot of money as such. Yeah, the money comes out, but not as such. Not like the M3 Gun, which is really breaking the record, coming up in a way that is really unique. But then you see the packaging, the content, the way he's being packaged on M3 Gun is a little bit unique. Regarding that, I think it explains why we're seeing all this. Now, still further on the reports, we see that the pandemic fundamentally altered how and where consumers view entertainment. Now, to be sure, people have returned to theaters, but not the same volume as per pre-pandemic times. Now, additionally, fewer theatrical releases have resulted into smaller overall box office. That's in the last year, that is 2022. Now, the domestic box office reached $7.5 billion in 2022, better than $4.85 billion collected in 2021. Wow, very interesting. Of course, 2021, we have just come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. It explains why we have the 4.58 billion, while 2022 is when the theoretical people going to the theaters to buy the tickets of these movies was rising up, and that's why we see a success of 7.8 billion. That's in 2022. Now, but down around 34%, that is compared to 2019. Now, 2019 was a little much more, because that's when that was before the pandemic era really kicked in that way. So we are seeing movies like M3 Gun are breaking the barrier. And moreover, if a movie like M3 Gun, which is a horror movie, is registering such a great success, so probably we anticipate that the year 2023, looking at in regards to relating to M3 Gun, with this enormous success, we might have about the industry at the box office industry being valued at about $10 billion in that way. Now, films like M3 Gun collectively add incremental value to the box office. Very perfect. In 2022, the horror genre accounted for around 700 million in domestic ticket sales, according to data that's from Comscore. And now, what that figure is down compared to the pre-pandemic levels, it indicates that persistent demand for spooky entertainment as the theater business rebounds. Now, 700 million domestic ticket sales. Now, looking at horror movies in 2022. So interesting. So M3 Gun is also coming to break that record come 2023. It's joining the race of the probable horror movies that are counting. Probably we are waiting for the statistics of 2023, and we see, but we anticipate that M3 Gun, amid its contribution to the box office, we get to see that it's going to lead to an inspiration of more movies, of course, going theoretical, and theaters are going to be making money in that incidence, and chances are high that the stocks of the theaters are going to also increase in a way because analysts are going to really value them at very high. Now, Paramount and Universal were the top contributors of horror content last year. Paramount's Smile sold, Paramount had a movie called Smile, sold about 105 million in tickets domestically and 217 million globally. Its newest installment in the Scream franchise took in 81 million in the US and Canada and 137 million worldwide. Now we see Paramount and Universal Pictures being one of the greatest contributors to releasing horrific content. Yes, so you can actually make some good money out of that. In Uganda, we really acted horrors, have seen some of the horrors, and well, I'm not going to, I won't judge or something. Of course, there is quite a long way to go in terms of the visual effects that can be employed right there, because we see there is potential of this kind of content to actually go viral. Well, depends on how you package your content, how creative you are in terms of releasing out this content and putting it out there to the public. Remember, as you're making this horrific content out there, the public is already biased about horror movies, so you have to be very creative. Just like the Universal Pictures was able to release M3 Gun in a much creative way, and now it's grossing big sums of money. 100 billion US dollars is quite a lot of money, of course, for a movie to gross away in that. And now that's it for the business and entertainment this morning, as we looked at Spotify laying off 6% of the labor force, and now coming down to the movie M3 Gun, of course, being one of the new movies on the race of the top 5 movies on the box office, and it's setting a very great pace for the box office, definitely implying that people are back to the theaters to go and watch these movies. Now it's 55 minutes past 8 a.m. and that's it for the business and entertainment. And this time, let's get into a short commercial break, and we'll return with more insights. But before that, I'll be joining you on ground with discussing the impact of import substitution strategy, trying to see whether this will have a great impact on the traders, or what do they think about it. Well, more on that, we shall be getting the views on ground. Stick around. Good morning.